All right, gotta let it breathe while we get the Facebook groups in. All right, got one, got two. Hope everybody's having a wonderful August 1st. Can't believe it's August 1st already. Gotta wait for a couple green check marks before we get into this. All right, there we go. Welcome in, everyone, to another episode of the Dev Valley Deep Divers. I am your host, Erick Trickel, and unfortunately, it's just me tonight. Lance is out going to a concert, I believe, with his wife, and everyone else has plans, a lot of date nights, a lot of family stuff going on. So it's gonna be just for me tonight, and we're gonna be, training camps underway. We're gonna be talking about it. But before we get into that, I hope everyone in the chat is having a wonderful August 1st, a wonderful Friday night. Can't believe it's August already. Can't believe football's back. If anybody in the chat watched the game last night, feel free to let me know. I sure didn't. Just didn't have the desire to, especially being the Hall of Fame game. Preseason games are, it's good for evaluation purposes, and there's certain teams that I'll watch for certain players, but I will typically not watch most preseason games outside of the Broncos. But it is a thing of, just doing it when it comes to the Broncos. A lot of
I interrupted Eric's train of thought because he's like, wait a minute, I thought I was going solo tonight. Chad told me you're going solo. I have to go to a rodeo with my wife and kids. But then Eric, I can't do it. I can't leave you solo. And then I found out, by the way, that it doesn't start till like an hour from now anyway. So I'm golden, dude. I'm going to join you.
All right.
That way it's a podcast, it's not just a guy talking on a microphone like, I don't know, Rush Limbaugh or whatever. I don't know who. I don't listen to talk radio, but sorry for interrupting you, dude. Back to your train of thought. Finish your train of thought, and I'll help out here tonight.
It's all good. I was just talking about the Hall of Fame game, asking if anybody watched it, and I don't watch a lot of preseason games outside of the Broncos. Did you watch the game last night at all?
No, because while it was going, we were streaming, Zach and I, and then I probably should have put it on and at least watched the reruns, but I haven't gotten around to it yet.
Yeah, I haven't even gotten around to that at some point. At some point I will. Chargers, it's worth kind of looking into what they have for depth pieces for it, but
true.
Not yet. Anyways, at some point I will. But anyways, gonna say hello to everybody here in the chat. We've got MBLE Test Prep saying I'm here to party, and of course Ernie May saying go Broncos country only. Pearl Heater saying where is the party? Chase Wallner saying DVDD. Welcome in, Chase. Welcome in, Pearl. Welcome in, MBLE Test Prep. And Ernie Todd Ossendorf saying you're blessed with an understanding wife then. Yeah, and she's very understanding, but it's also a benefit of where we live with the timing. I can sit here, I can do the show on a Friday night, and we still have plenty of time for a date night afterwards.
Yeah, in this business that we're in, you got to have it puts a lot of strain on the missuses and the wives at times, not always, but at times. And there are some sacrifices, like when you're doing live streams and Friday nights and whatnot. So Chelsea's got patience and she supports her guy. That's for sure.
Yeah, she's out playing Minecraft right now by herself, playing some mods on that. So she enjoys it too, because it's a time for her to get a little bit of a break as well from dealing with me, which isn't always an easy thing to do.
Hey, real quick. So I know I think I caught you like a minute in, right? And yeah. I'm realizing that today, a lot of people a little bit concerned. Eric, I want to get your take on this. A lot of people concerned. I shouldn't say a lot of people. Some people have reached out to me. They're like, oh my goodness, Bo Nix threw a couple picks today. One of them got called back because there was like defensive illegal contact, I think it was. But anyway, he got picked off. Should we be worrying that he's throwing all these interceptions and whatnot, which it's not all these. That was a poor choice of words, but nevertheless, that he's even throwing interceptions. Eric, the defense has dominated ever since the pads went on. Bo Nix has gotten his licks in. He had a nice end of period yesterday, but they didn't have the pads. They came back on today. Put it in context for people who might be a little anxious that Bo Nix has not been 100% perfect against this defense?
Well, from what I understand, that the two interceptions he threw today were the first two that he's thrown in all of camp. And one thing is interceptions in training camp practices are something that you kind of want to see, because it's often a sign of quarterbacks testing their limits. And in the
Boom.
case of one of them, it just seems like it was an outstanding play by Hufanga that he made to get the ball and take it back for a touchdown. So
Boom.
not concerned at all. And the other one was against taking a deep shot on Patrick Surtain to Cortland Sutton. I believe that was the one that was called back.
Yep.
So it's not concerning. Now if it's like consistently 3-4 every single day, that would be a little bit concerning. But it's just kind of coming with the growing pains. They did change a lot with their offense. Sean Payton talked about it more so with the running game. New pieces in the receiving weapon with Evan Ingram and Pat Bryant as well. So it's just adapting to all of that and growing, and just, again, you kind of want to see it. It's just testing the limits of what he can do against what seems to be another year of fantastic defensive play.
It's an elite defense, and that's the best way to put it. You gotta push the envelope a little. This is the format. Now, look, this doesn't go quite. The cookie doesn't crumble quite as favorably for the roster bubble guys. But for the entrenched starters, and especially the quarterbacks, this is where the coaches want to see you test the limits. And this is the format for making mistakes. And yes, these are his first turnovers of the training camp period. And you got to also remember that first one that Hufanga picked off. Dude, according to Sean Payton, Eric, I mean, I don't know. You might have metrics on this. I don't know. But from the time a ball leaves a quarterback's hand and reaches a guy relatively short, by the way, over the middle, short pass, Talanoa Hufanga, I don't know how much time that is, right? From when it leaves to when it gets to where it's supposed to go. Not long. We're talking fractions of a second. According to Sean Payton, Hufanga covered like 8 yards of space in between and picked off that ball. He said today, quote, the interception, it was an RPO. If you really looked at Hufanga's distance from the throw, I'll bet it was like 8 yards. So to be able to go up and catch that with a crowded look in front of him, I'm anxious to see it on film, and I saw it from behind the line of scrimmage. So he goes on to compliment the instincts and the football smarts and all that. But sometimes the other guy makes a great play too, Eric, is the point here.
Yeah, I mean, and that happens a lot. It's in this case, again, it's kind of what you want to kind of see that, because you want to get hyped up for that new defensive guy, especially with Hufanga being the new guy on that defense and being somebody who is, expectations are to take this defense to another level. And it's one of those things, as I said, with Bo Nix, is testing the limits. Now he knows with Hufanga that he can't get away from that.
Yeah.
And so when you go and watch tape of other teams' defenses and you see a defender that kind of, makes those plays, like can close that distance quickly like that, well, now Bo Nix knows that maybe he shouldn't test it and should look elsewhere. It's just a teaching moment. It's a great play by Hufanga. Great plays happen on both sides of the ball. And despite the 2 interceptions, at least it wasn't as bad as the second team offense that got pulled during 11s today.
Real quick, we're going to get to the first super chat of the night and some star comments, but I just want to give shouts to the supporters and the guys and gals who've become members on YouTube. That's about a week old, the existence of our membership offering. And by the way, we're doing Broncos Book Club first edition tomorrow at 4 p.m. Mountain Time. Have the first chapter, if you're participating, of the Elway years under your belt. It's going to be a gas. But shouts to MBLEX. Shouts to Chase Wellner in the Hizzy, longtime member of this community. Shouts to Proud Zennial 81. Great to see you. Yeah, awesome, dude. Stoked to have you with us tonight. And then we don't want to keep our friend David Cromwell waiting. He's got a very generous super chat. And he says, thank you, by the way, David. Really appreciate you, big dog. One, Eric, are you disappointed with Zadeh Barron's lack of splash plays in camp so far? And two, Bo Nix needed a day like today. So we'll talk about the Bo Nix thing further, but does it surprise you that no one's really writing about Zadeh Barron lighting up training camp? Instead, it's been like, oh, Troy Franklin burned him again in one-on-ones, da-da-da-da-da. Your thoughts for David?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where obviously the first round pick, you want to come out and you want to see those splash plays happen, but he's a cornerback, and there's a lot of adjustment to it for him, especially with this defense, with what they're asking him to do. And from all accounts, I think Sean Payton had a quote on it, talked about him yesterday, might have been today, and brought up how he's just been kind of consistent.
Yep.
And yeah, he's had those bad moments. He's had some bright moments. If I remember right, on Monday, he had a nice pass broken up play I can't remember. It was one of the days with the pads on, if I remember correctly. So there's been highs, there's been lows, and that's going to happen with the rookie. So I'm not disappointed with it. And it's one of those things where if we get to the end of camp and, preseason, we're getting to the start of the regular season and it's still being such an issue, maybe I'll start having concerns. But again, he's still a rookie, and rookies, they take some time.
Yeah, not only that, but he has also been garnering a lot of praise. Kind of wise beyond his years relative to football and his football IQ and all that. So yes, he's been getting praise. It's just that the big splash plays, to your point, David, haven't been there yet, but good things come to those who wait. And I think next week when the Broncos have that joint practice on Thursday in the Bay Area, a couple days before that preseason game against the Niners, that'll be a more informative kind of litmus test because, man, they've been going at each other for so long now. And even though we're only about a week into practice, when I say so long, I'm talking about all the scrimmages they've had dating back to when the offseason training program began. So that'll be a fun litmus test, and we're looking forward to that. Also, so again, thank you, D-Crom. The Rock also checking in. What's up, brother? Thank you. Says, good evening, Chad and Eric on the Dove Valley Deep Divers. Go Bo Broncos. You're the man, dude. I don't know what we do without the Rock. Some shouts. Hey, Greg, what's going on, buddy? Great to see you. Mike S. in the house. Stoked to have you. Todd Ostendorf in the house. And by the way, that's how he says it. I got it wrong a few times saying Ostendorf. He's like, no, it's like if you were to say Austin, like the city in Texas, that's kind of it. Ostendorf. Good to see you, Todd. Those things are important to me. What can I say? Gene William, what is going on, big dog? Look at that gorgeous profile pic you've got still rocking on Facebook. Oh boy, brings back the memories. In fact, I'm wearing the same shirt I was wearing in that pic. Check it out, dude. Split cast. Great to see you. He says, what's up, boys? Loving seeing the boys work. What's y'all's favorite part of camp so far? Do you have a specific highlight that's been a favorite for you at this point, Eric?
I think the trash talk between Malcolm Roach and Marvin Mims. And I gotta admit, as a fat guy, having Mims shrug him off as he's a fat guy rubbed me the wrong way. I'm no longer a Mims fan because of that. But no, I love the trash talk that comes, just the playful banter. And then you mentioned the practices with the 49ers next week. I love to see the trash talk that comes out of that because it's no longer your teammates. It's another team, and so you can really, unlock that treasure trove of trash talk that you can unleash on them without, causing disruptions within the team.
Yeah, I felt a little bit of a pang as well when Mims said, worry about being a fat guy or whatever. Because, hey, when you're 6 feet tall and you're like, even if you're tipping the scales slightly over 200, you're a fat guy. And so, I got the dad bod. I got to work on this thing a little bit as well. So, geez, Marvin, come on, dude. I'm just kidding. It didn't really hurt my feelings. I thought it was funny too, like you did, Eric. Also, we got Gene's father, the man who fathered Gene. Oh, and by the way, Gene, dude, I can't remember if your dad spilled the beans publicly or not, so I'm not going to, just in case I'm misremembering, but that big event that just happened in your life, dude, congrats. Really stoked for you, man. What an achievement already. Ralph jumping in to say, what's up, my guys? How can we get Micah Parsons opposite of Nick Bonito? Could be like a Vaughn, DeMarcus Ware situation. So in case you guys missed it, Micah Parsons, the great rush linebacker for the Dallas Cowboys, publicly requested a trade today, and it's had the interwebs all abuzz. And of course, every team under the sun, Eric, starts daydreaming. I don't blame you, Ralph. I'm right there with you. You start going, oof, what would that look like? I mean, if he wants out and they're going to trade him, I mean, what could that look like if he were to join the Broncos? But he wants to know how you love talking about trades and this guy could get moved and that guy, Eric. How can the Broncos figure out how to get Parsons opposite of Bonito, where, they already have a guy on a second contract opposite of Bonito, Jonathan Cooper? But your answer.
I mean, it'd be rough to see. I think if Dallas was even going to entertain that, I think that they would be looking at Bonito plus first round picks and not other plus first round picks for Parsons. I think it would have to include that. And also it's one of those things with the Cowboys. Every single year, they seem to have that one extension that drags on and it goes public, and it, kind of gets a little nasty there. The player doesn't always end up requesting a trade, but it becomes very public and they get the deal done. I don't expect Parsons to be traded. I expect him to get that extension just because the Cowboys, they like to dominate those July, August headlines with when it comes to contracts and negotiations because it helps them make money that way. But in
That's
terms
true.
of getting him for Benito, I just don't see it.
I don't see it either. Sorry, Ralph. And a good friend of mine is one of the, we'll just say he's like the Mike Kliss of the Dallas football market. And he's not seeing it happen. And he thinks it's just bloviations and kind of the way the Cowboys handle their negotiations. Like, it does seem, Eric, to be a tad incompetent the way this continuously happens for the Cowboys, these type of things.
Yeah.
So I think here's the big blow up and the big splash. And, in a week or two's time, you'll hear this news of a record extension and Parsons not going anywhere. I mean, guys like him obviously don't grow on trees, and they're going to figure out how to. He's had some injuries, don't get me wrong, but they're going to figure out how to keep him around. Proud Zenial, a member on YouTube, and throwing down a super chat like a boss, dude. Thank you, pal. Says, would love to hear your thoughts on the receiver room and who gets a jersey. Will we keep 6 on the roster? I'm asking now, Eric, or will we keep 7? I'll explain that. But then he says, is Michael Burton able to go to the practice squad to keep another running back? I would expect that. I don't expect Burton to be carried on the roster out of camp. They'll put him on the squad and then utilize as many, all 3 of his elevations, which they can do 3 times. Then they'll sign him to the active roster. But what's your answer here, though, Eric, on the receiver situation?
Yeah, I mean, it was before I was pretty set on only 6 receivers, but I'm now wondering if there's that 7th one that sneaks on because from all accounts, all these receivers have been having really good days. Obviously, the 6 that are pretty obvious, Sutton, Bryant, Bailey, Franklin, Mims, and Sherfield are the ones that are, pretty cemented on there for, either for special teams reason or what they're doing on offense, the steps that they're taking on offense. Now does that other one make in the Davis? He's been getting a lot of praise, and so has
Bandy got some today.
Yeah.
Joaquin
Courtney Jackson? Is that the other one, the smaller one?
Yeah.
He's one that Nick and we've talked about with the changes on the kickoff rules. He's one that can make sense as that 7th receiver to give them another returner option with Marvin Mims because you got to have that guy now.
Right. What about Sherfield is that guy, though?
From what I've seen of him on special teams, he seems more of that gunner type. Yeah. One of the guys that's going to replace Tremon Smith and what he did.
Man, especially with how Joaquin Davis has been looking, especially this week. I would tell you he's had a very pleasantly surprising training camp period, but like this week, he's really been able to build up some momentum. So it wouldn't shock me if they go light somewhere else, even if it's carry 3 running backs on the roster and practice squad, two backs and a fullback, honestly, in order to carry 7 guys. Although it would still, Eric, take a lot would have to happen between now and the final cuts for even a guy like Joaquin Davis to actually get a spot on the 53, but he's taken those steps. And I got to tell you, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, Eric, before we jump over to Mike Thompson's super chat. But I have been a lot more confident about the Broncos receiving core than, let's just say, the national press. But even that being as it may, they've looked a lot better in training camp than I expected initially. This young group of guys, like who's going to be the number 2, all that stuff. Do you feel like this receiving core might be underrated, like a little bit of a sleeper going into 2025?
Anybody who's been watching on, Friday nights or in the mornings knows that I have been very questionable about this wide receiver room just because it's, not having a lot of realized talent. It's a lot of potential, but we're starting to see that potential kind of materialize on the practice field, but it's a practice field. Got to see it in the game.
Yep.
Preseason game will be a big test for a lot of these guys. Can Troy Franklin carry it over? Been a hot start to it. Great to see for him for camp, but it's not always about how you start. It's about how you finish. So can he continue this? Marvin Mims, he had a really bad day today, but he's looking more refined as a route runner. So it's looking like they very well could be, an underrated group, but there's still a lot of time left, and hard to say until we get them in the games and see what they do in that situation.
And of course, it's a quarterback dependent position.
Yeah.
So as Bo goes, so will the wideouts. But I am highly encouraged, Proud Zennial. Mike, thank you for your patience, big dog, and for the super chat. You rock. What would you trade for Parsons? Like, if you were to make an offer, what would you be willing to give up within, Eric, the realm of the plausible? Like, it has to be something would actually like start the conversation.
That's tough because I wouldn't make that call personally. It's a thing of, not only are you looking at, I think the conversation is, you're looking at a player and at least 2, possibly 3 first round picks, depending on the quality of the player, their age, their contract. And then you've got to look at, you're basically handing him $42 million on an average per year basis, because you're going to have to pay him more than what TJ Watt got. As good of a player as he is, as great of a player as he is, probably, top 5 defensive player in the NFL, period. I wouldn't make that call just because of the cost to get him on top of the cost for that contract.
Yep. And frankly, the Broncos don't need him. Look, Parsons is a great player, and he's individually better than anyone the Broncos currently have, including the Pro Bowler and second team All-Pro Nick Bonito. But once again, we're talking about it. It's almost like, Eric, not quite to this degree, but what if, Sauce Gardner was demanding a trade? Do you really feel like you need Sauce Gardner in Denver? You have Pat Surtain and a very deep cornerback room up to this point. And it's not quite on that same level, but it's pretty dang close, in my opinion, because it's a strength in numbers type of thing. It's not just that you have on one side a double-digit sack artist, on the other side a double-digit sack artist, but also the 2 guys behind them combined for 10 sacks last season in relief of them as starters. And then they drafted a guy who, by the way, Q Robinson, we found out today, the reason he's missed now 3 straight practices, and he'll continue to miss them until sometime next week, he's got a bone bruise. So anyway, I would not, for what it's worth, Mike, I would not trade for Parsons, because as Eric just perfectly illustrated, what you'd have to give up, both in the level of a new contract and the actual compensation relinquished to the Cowboys relative to what you already have, like, you'd be cutting off your nose to spite your face, so to speak. Ronk jumping in saying Jaleel McLaughlin is ready to prove that he belongs to be the number 3 running back behind J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey. Eric, we heard from McLaughlin today after practice, which was really cool. Sean Payton gave him some props yesterday, basically saying that he's been shining with the pads on. He's hard to tackle, et cetera, et cetera. But do you think he's pretty safe bet to be like that third guy in terms of not just role, Eric, but even just like priority, who they keep, et cetera?
Yeah, I've felt for a while that McLaughlin is kind of safe as that third running back behind the other 2. Even before J.K. Dobbins, I felt that he was kind of that guy that was most likely to be that number 2 running back, depending on Audric Esme could compete there, but just with what has come out about the feelings around McLaughlin, it's always seemed like a guy that they've really loved internally. He really came on hot to end last year, started, being more consistent and being, one of the more efficient and effective runners for them to close out the season. So I always felt that he was safe. And even now, I think that he's put himself, I still think there's a distance between him and Dobbins and Harvey, but I also think there's distance between him and the others competing for that 4th spot. So I think he's pretty well set where he's at.
Greg wants to know any updates on Dre Greenlaw. Yes. Thank you for asking. So Sean Payton didn't even wait for the questions today. Like his opening statement, he revealed the bone bruise on Q Robinson and why he's being rested. And then on Dre Greenlaw, he felt a tweak in his quad, but it's not the same quad that he injured in the offseason. According to Payton, he said, quote, he felt a tweak. Remember, yesterday he was running I think it was in one-on-ones, Eric, and pulled up lame kind of and tried to walk it off. And the Broncos were like, no, into the locker room. But Peyton said, quote, he felt a tweak. Fortunately, the scans were good. We're going to be smart with bringing him back, but we see him getting work and being a part of next week. We're fortunate there. Next week, meaning, of course, the joint practice with Dre's former team, Eric, and, of course, the preseason game. So bullet dodged on that front.
Yeah, it's nice to see that they're being extra cautious with him because he's got that history of those lower leg injuries, those lower body injuries. Worth being cautious with, not worth letting him try to walk it off and getting it even worse, which, ever since Sean Payton's come in, we've seen a little bit more of that. Guy pulls up a little bit. They've been a little bit more cautious with it than some of the coaches prior. But
Yep.
Greenlaw is a difference maker for this defense. They definitely need him. So if he has to miss even more practice than needed, then as he deals with this pulled quad, well, that's fine because they're going to need him during the season.
I know it's like that. On one hand, I'm going, dude, just put him in bubble wrap and wait till September. But on the other hand, it's like, well, he does need to get his body needs to get that callus on some level, that football callus. So I don't envy the Broncos and how they determined to walk that razor's edge because it's not easy. Phil in Tucson jumping in, proving that Broncos country is not a geographic location. It's a state of being, baby. And we love you, Phil. Thanks, pal. He says, good evening, Chad and Eric. I love the trash talk. And I'm really hoping we get a dog on defense. Might be Malcolm Roach. Need the mean machine running wild. Yeah, no doubt, dude. I kind of thought it was funny. Malcolm Roach was very lighthearted today at the podium when he was asked about what Mims said, the fat guy stuff and, making fun of him that he's a small guy and he's already so skinny. He can't change his body. And, just like locker room talk, dude, literally, like, I don't mean potty talk, hey, like watch your mouth. I mean, like anyone who hangs, I'm sure girls do this on some level, but like dudes, especially, you could love this dude. He's your bro. Like you would jump in front of a bus for him if needed to. If he's, if you're dying in the street, he's the first guy you call. And you'll still make fun of him and like, call him names. And that's just what you do. Like that's what a lot of guys do. It's the way guys are. So I don't read too much into it, but the trash talk, Eric, it's not only coming from like Malcolm Roach, but one of the other developments is, oh, hey, J.K. Dobbins, vocal leader,
Yep.
not just vocal leader. He's already got guys looking to him and he's the one chirping back at Roach the most vociferously.
Yeah, and I can't remember for sure, but today I know Marvin Mims Jr. was caught on an end around. I'm pretty sure that Roach was the one who blew that up. I can't remember for sure. I think so. And if so, I mean that just adds to their trash talk because after Marvin Mims called him fat and everything, in a joking manner and all that, Roach kind of got the last laugh because you can talk all you want, but what you do on the field, that's even louder. So if it was Roach who blew up that play, kind of sent a message, but either way,
Yeah.
it's it's fun, it's jovial, it's lighthearted, and it's one of those things where we've heard about it before because if I remember right, DJ Jones talked about how last year about Roach being vocal and funny and just that guy that's always chirping. So we've known it with Roach, but it's just this year it seems to be on a different level, and I absolutely love it. And it's one of the reasons why I would really like to see Denver extend him.
The don't ever F with us mindset that Derek Wolfe cultivated as a leader, it kind of feels like it's starting to come back. And a big part of that, to quote Sean Payton, comes from the confidence born of demonstrated ability, quote unquote. Mike, dude, I feel bad. I wasn't trying to like slam your question. I'm just telling you how I felt about like, do you need him? So now he's jumping in with the second super. Thank you, brother. I love you, Mike. What would you trade for Sauce Gardner, Jensen, since you brought it up? Geez, I wouldn't for what it's worth, but you already knew that, Mike. But what would it take for any team, Eric, to pry Sauce Gardner out of New York?
I think you're kind of looking at the Rams Jalen Ramsey trade when they got the Jaguars. That's kind of what you're looking at for that now. But obviously with his extension, it's not happening. But I think that's what you're looking for, which to me would be insane because I'm not sure there's a more overrated cornerback in the NFL than Sauce Gardner, especially after last season.
Hey, Drew, thank you for the super chat, big dog. If you have any specific questions or topics or comments, drop it in the chat and we'll keep an eye out for them. But thank you very much, dude, helping us keep the lights on this Friday evening on Dove Valley Deep Divers. Myself filling in for Lance, who's he's at a concert or something.
Yeah, he's unhappily at a concert.
Unhappily at a concert.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, Ralph, this is a good topic segue. Blake Watson has impressed with his receiving out of the backfield. I would be surprised if we keep. Wait, maybe is he talking about Blake Watson out of the backfield? Yeah, I'd be surprised if we keep 6. Talking about receivers, I think is what he means. But nevertheless, the reason I wanted to bring this to the fore, aside from Ralph's a great dude and a friend, is Blake Watson has begun, Eric, building up some momentum in recent days. Basically, since the pads came on, he's another guy that's starting to garner a little bit of buzz. But it's not only like a kind of oddly stacked depth chart for those other 4 guys. I mean, we know JK and RJ, they're locks. And I think, frankly, Jalil's a lock too. But where does that leave the Estimes, who's a 5th-round pick last year? Watson, haven't heard as much about Bidet, although he's been solid enough. You wouldn't necessarily write him up as a riser faller. But what do you see in Watson? And also, Broncos fans didn't get to see him much last year because he spent the whole year basically on the practice squad. So I don't know how much you scouted him during the ahead of the 2024 draft, Eric, but like, what kind of player is this kid?
Yeah, I mean, I watched him a lot. He was one of those guys that I thought, we're taking a risk with a late round pick. Ball security was a concern, and that was kind of an issue last preseason and training camp. And I believe he had a fumble early on this year. I want to say it was like the third or fourth practice. He had a fumble on it, but he's really starting to turn around. He's got that receiving. He's got that speed. Don't ask him to block. Don't ask him to run between the tackles. Don't ask him to run in short yardage situations. So he kind of brings that element there that you're wanting to get out of RJ Harvey, which makes it a little bit tougher to keep him because you want those complementary skill sets from the running back position, which is why I think for that 4th spot, that's why I think Estime has the best chance. Yeah. And Estime's had some good runs as well. Yep. And which helped lead to some of the chirping there from Malcolm Roach that we were talking about. So it's tough for that final spot, as I think they do keep 4 running backs. Michael Burton going on to the practice squad, as you mentioned earlier. But Blake Watson, he's doing a lot to stand out. He definitely has to do a lot because maybe he's past Tyler Bidet, maybe not. But coming into camp, he was the lowest man on that totem pole.
No doubt. Todd says it's tough to project which running backs will stick this year outside of Harvey and Dobbins. I'm telling you, McLaughlin's a lock, guys. He's a lock. Zeniel, a member and a superstar, says Arizona is Broncos country. Amen. Even though Arizona has an NFL team, right? Like they have the Cardinals and everything. So many Broncos fans are in Arizona, which, by the way, I'll be there in 2 weeks. It's the last little thing of summer that I'm doing with, the Bridge the Gap thing. So come say hi if you're in Phoenix area, proud Zenial. We'll be in Tempe on the 15th. So look into it if you're interested to come hang out and say hi. Ralph, love you, big dog. Thank you, pal, for the support. Scott is not in the house tonight, so I don't know. Maybe he'll see you, but that's cool that you'll be in the fine state of Georgia, traveling for business, probably. I'll let him know. Drew jumping in again, brother. Thank you. Drew, dude, you're a prince. Much love and respect. Thank you. I loved the work hard Jaleel, but he's just not very good. Doesn't break tackles, not that fast, and got his chance last year. Keep Estime. Give him one more chance. Too young to let walk. For what it's worth, I agree that Estime, there's too much unfinished business there to just like write him off out of hand or even risk putting him on the wire to try and sneak him onto the squad. Push comes to shove, I think it's going to take a lot to get the Broncos off of the 4 running backs being Dobbins, Harvey, McLaughlin, Estime. But to the point about McLaughlin, this is what he said, Sean Payton, about Jaleel after yesterday's practice. So hear him out on this. He says, quote, I think he continues to work on the passing game element relative to what he does. I think he's a change of pace runner. He's got really good quickness and agility. You don't get to appreciate him until it's tackle. And then you appreciate him because he didn't get tackled. It's a little harder. And then he goes on to talk about, developmental backs, this and that. But he says he's not going to make it to any practice squad.
Yeah.
So I think you appreciate, and it gets back to that position. You get to see a little bit more of them when it's a tackle and their yards after contact. How do they go down? All those other things. So he's telling you yesterday, he doesn't believe if the Broncos waived him, he's making it to a practice squad. He would get claimed. And then they put him in front of the podium. They don't put guys at the podium that they're even really having a decent chance of not being on this team, even in training camp. I'm telling you, McLaughlin is a lock, bro.
Yeah, and while he doesn't break tackles because he just doesn't have that strength to do it, he's on the smaller side of it. He can make tacklers miss. It's something that he did quite well last year. He actually led the Broncos last year in missed tackles forced, beating out Jaleel Williams. Javonte Williams. Yeah. And he did well in yards after contact, picking up 2.5 yards after contact on average, which is the third highest on the team. He, 25 first downs, which was, second most among the running backs. So he did well last year. Were there issues? Yeah, there was issues with every single running back. But when you look at the Broncos run game as a whole, he was the one that took the best advantage of what the offensive line was giving him, what the tight ends were giving him, what they were giving him as, with blocking for the run. He took advantage of that the best. And it's one of those things where, he doesn't have the best vision, but he can follow the design of the play and he trusts his blockers to open up that hole. And he's got that burst to get through it. I don't think he's got the best long speed, but he definitely has that explosive burst to just pick up chunk yards consistently. And I mean, you mentioned it, being at the podium, I would be surprised if he's cut. They don't do that, as you said. And just the way that Sean Payton has consistently talked about him, it leads to this guy's going to make it.
Which, by the way, we talked about, you mentioned it, and I agree, the lack of, and so did Drew there, the lack of strength to consistently break tackles. So he ended last year with a listing of 5'7", 187. According to him at the podium today, he's now at 199, Eric. So he's put on some LBs trying to build up that strength while he's also been working on his receiving chops because he wants some of that Joker action. As Sean Payton said, he's working toward it, but he hasn't gotten his wings yet. But he actually got a jugs machine to put in his garage so that he gets home from practice and he's catching balls. So Jaleel McLaughlin is just one of those glue guys that coaches freaking love, dude. And he's not going anywhere for what it's worth. And Drew, I'm telling you, I don't think Estime's going anywhere. I think it would take a lot for a Blake Watson or a Tyler Bidet to upset that particular apple cart at this stage. So, all right, let me jump back into the chat here. Where are we at? We're at 38 minutes roundabouts. Ronk says, I disagree with that take because Jaleel McLaughlin said he is faster than last year, which is interesting too because, as I just mentioned, Eric, he's put on 12 pounds of muscle. Dude, it's not easy to put 12 pounds of muscle on in the span of like 6 months or 7 months or whatever it's been. So, but also Ronk brought up something earlier I want to touch on. Troy Franklin, he says, this is going to be Troy Franklin's bounce back year. I would say just bounce year, right? Because to bounce back, you have to have been somewhere first. He hasn't been anywhere in the league other than Eric. He caught that pass in the playoff loss. He and Bo Nix made some cool rookie history. The first rookie quarterback, believe it or not, to throw a touchdown pass in the NFL playoffs to another rookie wide receiver. That never happened until just past January with Nix to Franklin. But he's had a good camp, dude. But here's the funny thing. Sean Payton isn't ready to give him any flowers yet. Whatever it was 4 days ago, he's like, pump the brakes on the Troy Franklin hype. Like, let's not, let's cool it on writing the headlines around Troy Franklin. He's still got a long road to hoe. So what's your outlook for Troy Franklin now, Eric, based on what you've seen from him? I mean, he's been burning Zadeh Barron on the reg in one-on-ones.
Yeah, I mean, he had that big touchdown in, I think it was the second day of practice over Damari Mathis. One thing that stands out for him is there were 3 areas that he really needed to work on, and all 3 of them seem to have been where he's put the most work on. Consistently catching the ball, tracking the ball over his shoulder, and then just expanding his route running. Because last year he was that, going to go run a deep post or that 9 route or he's just going to run that, quick hook, quick curl, slant, something short right near the line of scrimmage. That was about one of the two, I think, ways that he was used.
Yep.
So adding more of that intermediate aspect of it, ways that you could take advantage of his speed besides just taking the top off the defense, that is something that needed to be done with him, because it just improves what Denver can use with him. It makes them less predictable with him. Whereas, you're just able to take the top off the defense, or you're going to have to catch a line of scrimmage. Well, defenses kind of can key in on that and, defend against it easier. But all that said, it's been a hot start for Troy Franklin. He definitely needed it. It was, June, I was about like 60% certain that he's going to make the roster. I'm now about 85, 90% certain he's going to make the roster. He's definitely helped himself. But as I said, it's not always about how you start. It's how you finish. He has everything he needs to continue and keep going at the way he's going and finish strong. It's just a matter of actually going out there and doing it.
I like this from earlier. Guess who's back? Back again. Chad is back. Yeah, every night this week I've been doing the podcast because I'm a sick maniac and I love it. But I wanted to grab this from one of our great members, Chase, who said, if the linebacker room, worst case scenario, wound up being about the same as last year, do you still, Eric, see this defense taking a step forward? Which they ranked, the Broncos defense finished very high in the rankings, right? Like they were, we'll just call them for the most part, a top 5 defense last year. And then they, of course, led the NFL in sacks. So it would take a lot, in my opinion, to take a step forward from that. They're already, in other words, an elite defense. Can they become even more elite, Eric, and be that number one unit? But specific to what he's saying with the linebackers, worst case, if it ends up being roughly a Sternad and Cody Barton level of linebacker contribution, is this defense still taking a step forward?
No, just because the easiest path for them to take a step forward is getting that improvement from the linebacker play, to where the Bengals aren't able to, do shifts and stuff like that to, open up Mike Gesicki, or, the Chargers that are not able to, use the play action to pull those linebackers in and, dump it off to Ladd McConkey behind them. It's just the way that defenses figured out how to attack this defense with the issues that they had at linebacker. And teams are going to go back and look at that and try that the same if they don't have Dre Greenlaw out there specifically. Because Alex Singleton, I don't think he's much of a difference maker in coverage than what you got out of Sternad or Barton last year. His difference is coming against the run. So you definitely need Dre Greenlaw. So if you don't have those guys out there, then I doubt it. If you're getting that same level of play of last year, it's just, again, that's just the easiest way for this defense to take that step forward.
Yeah. Let's just say it does stay static at linebacker and, you don't see the improvements that you hoped for. The one silver lining to the possibility of the defense, because I agree with everything Eric just said, basically. It's a slim possibility. But what accounts for that slim, in other words, what possibility there still is, to me, Eric, is the addition of still Hufanga coming in as a run support and coverage guy, and also Zadeh Barron, who, not just what Barron can do at corner, but like the flexibility he gives the Broncos in the event that there's if Riley Moss has a hard time staying healthy again, which, by the way, he's another guy that put on some weight this year to try and bulk up and be a little more durable. But if something happens to him or any of the guys, like they actually have legit cornerback depth now, but still the middle of the defense, Eric, vulnerable if the Broncos linebackers don't take a step forward. But we know that Dre Greenlaw is going to be around. Knock on wood. And we'll see what happens with Singleton, the thumb. Does he survive the cuts? There is a salary cap incentive for him not surviving the cuts, especially with a guy like Lavelle Bailey thriving the way he has so far, Eric. But I think in order for that to play out where Singleton doesn't make it in the final analysis and they try and save some money on the cap, I think you would have needed Drew Sanders to not get hurt. Now they're so thin at linebacker. They're basically their top 3 guys are not practicing the last 2 days, whether it's from Greenlaw to Singleton to Sanders. And that's created an opening so far that Lavelle Bailey, Eric, has been able to fill. Justin Sternad does not inspire much confidence, but if it ends up being, God forbid, Sternad, Bailey, inside linebacker core we're in for, a few setbacks here and there. I think they'll still be able to hold their own and still be a top 5, top 10 defense, but like best of the best, elite number 1, maybe not.
Yeah, Bailey is a wild card there with the improvements that he's showing.
Right.
Compared to, Sernod, we had a pretty good idea of what he was on defense. Cody Barton, we knew what he was on defense. And so if Bailey ends up having to start, there's still that possibility just because he's an unknown. Would I bet on it? Not at all. But he's just, from everything that's going on about him with, getting all these reps because of the injuries, these extra reps because of these injuries, and he's just consistently shining and standing out and making plays, showing the improvements against the run that he desperately needed. When you go back and look at, preseason last year, that was a big issue with him, and he's showing improvements there. So he's a complete unknown factor for this. And as you said, that could open the door for parting ways with Alex Singleton.
Yep.
And but it's still a concern. I mean, Drew Sanders, he needed these reps. I wasn't certain he was going to make this roster. I think this injury still keeps that cloudy, because now if you waive him, he's got to be waived injured, come back on injured reserve. So maybe he's the guy who makes it initially, then goes on injured reserve that they can bring back after a few weeks. So it's still a very muddied linebacker position, but a guy like Lavelle Bailey, if he keeps showing what he is, can provide a little bit extra clarity.
Real quick, let's grab this, guys. We're about out of time. So consider this kind of your 2-minute warning. If there's any burning questions or topics, get them in the chat here. But Ralph wants to know, with some stars. Thank you, Ralph, again, bro. What round would you draft Troy Franklin on your fantasy team? Eric, I don't know about you, but I'm not a fantasy guy. So like, I used to be like way gnarly into it before I started blogging for fun, and then blogging for fun turned into MHH. So that was 15 years ago. I haven't played for a long time. But do you have an answer for Ralph?
I don't. I haven't played fantasy football in like 10 years.
I would say he probably isn't a guy you draft, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Like if I were drafting now, and I'm not an expert anymore, I'm not as like dialed into like how you get when you're like way into it. I wouldn't draft him on fantasy, like unless I was trying to be like orange colored, orange blinders on, etc., and just like Bronco guys. But like for the best interest of my fantasy team and trying to win the pot, whatever it may be, I'm probably not drafting Franklin this year. I'm keeping an eye on him as a waiver wire guy, as an addition as the season marches on. But like, I'm not drafting him.
I would say if you are really confident that he's going to break out this year, then maybe in the final round you take him, just so that way you can, sit him on your roster. And then if he doesn't cut it, you could waive him, or if he cuts it, you took that shot and it paid out. But that's at most for me. But again, I'm no expert. I haven't played fantasy football in like 10 years. So I don't even know how it works anymore.
It works the same. I mean, it's just kind of being, like I said, we know the league because when you cover a team, and Eric even more so than me because of how much he covers the draft. So he follows these guys and he knows where they land and where they end up in the NFL. But like when you're covering a team, sure, the lay of the land, the main players on all the teams and whatnot. But like the level of psychotic obsession and focus that I had when I played fantasy, dude, like that's not there for me anymore. But nevertheless, a good question, a lot of fun. Aaron, we covered this topic, buddy. Thank you for the props and for being with us. But in Connecticut, that's rad, dude. I think that's what you're saying, Broncos fan, CT, Connecticut. We did cover this earlier in the podcast, the Micah Parsons thing, so check that out. Let's see here. Yeah, I agree, Ronk. Unfortunately, I mean, until someone unseats them, the Chiefs are still the AFC West team to beat. The Broncos got to get over that hump. I think they will this year, to be frank with you. I feel good about that happening this year. Eric, Ronk jumping in here with some final stars to say, great show tonight, Chad and Eric on the Dove Valley Deep Divers. Go Bo Broncos. Were there any other thank you, bro. Were there any other topics tonight you wanted to get to, Eric? Or
no, not that I can think of.
Yeah.
I think we've covered just about everybody that I wanted to talk about or mention with what they've been doing in camp so far.
And we touched on all the injury updates. So
Yep.
I'll do that one last time if you're just joining us. Dre Greenlaw, it is a quad. It's not the quad that he injured earlier this offseason. He'll be back next week. Q Robinson, the rookie rush linebacker, 4th rounder, he's got a bone bruise. So similar prognosis in that he'll be back sometime next week. We still haven't seen A.T. Perry, the Broncos legend, Eric. I don't know what's going on with A.T. Perry, and I think it's his ankle. But Devon Vele's been back in the saddle. So aside from what we already covered with Singleton, who was also out there today, not practicing, but he did the warm-ups and the stretch and stuff. So they'll wait another 4 or 5 days for the incision wound from his thumb surgery to heal a little bit more. Then they'll strap a club on him and he'll be out there practicing. But yeah, Eric, I can never remember how you guys like to do your goodbyes and whatnot, but dude, it's been fun, man. Always have a blast chopping it up with you, bro.
Yeah, I mean, it was good having you on. It was good not having to do the whole show by myself. Seeing Michael come in about the Kansas City Chiefs when I was out, I had to go grocery shopping today, and I grabbed my hat. It was my Broncos hat, and ended up having to deal with this Chiefs fan trash talking me for about 5 minutes. And I just wanted to take the toilet paper that I was sitting next to and just throw it at him.
Take that. I know, dude. I'm so sick of him. Proud Zaniel, great show, fellas. Love the collab. Chad, get some rest, brother. See you at the Yucca. Yeah, dude, that'll be fun. August 15th. A little melodic punk, wholesome melodic punk before the season gets started in earnest. That is officially that thing on the 15th. The last thing I'm doing with Bridge the Gap until 2026, because once football starts, I just don't have time to jump in cars and vans and go play outside and market and stuff. It's not easy to do, but it's a lot of fun. I just won't have the time for it till next off season. So last call on that front. Love you guys. Hey, quickly though, before we dip, some shouts to the great Super Chat superstars, supporters, and members helping us keep the lights on, like D-Crom, David Cromwell, longtime friend of the shows here at MHH, The Ronk, Gene William, congrats to you again, big dog, on the cool things happening in your life. Ralph, Proud Zen, Mike Thompson, multiple supers. Phil in Tucson, Drew, multiple supers. Love it, dude. Thank you so much, pal. I think I covered everybody. So if I missed anybody on stars, that's why it probably looked like I was checking my phone. I was checking my phone, but without Scott here, I have to go in to be sure I don't miss any stars on Facebook. I have to like open it up and like jump into the actual chat. And I'm pretty sure we covered everybody. So much love and respect. And Ralph saying, great show. I'm 12 wins and sweeping the Chiefs, even though Chad sees us losing to the Bengals. Well, you know, gun to my head, they can't win them all. You know, I mean, they won't win them all. We know that. So you got to like think, which ones are they going to lose? I'm happy, Eric. Like, it's just a step forward for this team, and then we'll get out of here. When they win the games they're supposed to win. So like that this team started doing that last year. They weren't able to do it consistently with Russ and Peyton, but with Bo and Peyton, they were able to do it more consistently last year. So this year, that means like handling the Titans, handling the Colts, at least not getting swept by the Chargers, you know, split that at the very least. And that Bengals game, man, that's going to be a throwdown, dude.
Yeah.
Marquee quarterbacks, Monday Night Football. I want to be wrong. I hope the Broncos win that game, but by the time we get to the season, I might be singing a different tune. Like either the Broncos might come out super hot and it looks like they're going to dominate any and all comers, or maybe the Bengals get injured early or something. We'll see, but I think 12 is a solid. Vegas, Eric said it at 9.5 wins, the over under. So I think 10 to 12 wins is pretty fair for this team.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Papa Bear on this. I have them going 13-4 this year.
Yeah.
As I've said multiple times, it's a weird year because I'm actually, riding the hype of the Broncos with how it is, instead of being, normally a little bit pessimistic about it, 8 wins max, 9 wins max. I think they have a chance to take the division. I don't think the Chiefs got insanely better than they were last year. In some ways, I think they got worse. So I think the division title's up for grabs, but it's just a matter of, can they grab it? Can they take hold of the opportunity and, win those games that they need to?
Ronk says the 3 games the Broncos, the 3 NFL games for the Broncos are Commanders, Eagles, Chiefs on Christmas. Are you saying the losses or like big games? I'm not sure exactly what you mean there, but anyway, guys, we got to bounce on out of here. Love you so much. Eric's got a few little things he says at the end, but I'll see you guys on Sunday.
Yeah. As always, hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Have a wonderful Friday night. I will see you Monday morning, barring another medical thing that popped up like this last week. Hope you guys stay safe. Don't drink and drive. And as my good friend Nick always says, make sure you choose kindness, compassion. And as always, go Broncos.